My name is Amarin. I'm the Artist Relations Manager for AXiS. I've been with AXiS for 4 years. Grateful to be here and hanging out with Derek Roddy. Derek has been with us for, how many years?
I think we're in like the first 5 endorsers. So wow. As far back as 91.
He's a drummer that really influenced me as a kid, and he's a big part of me playing drums and being here and doing what I do. So I'm really happy to be here and to chat about this new product that.
I think sexy, huh?
At NAMM, we were showing the new Derek Roddy Signature pedal. The cool addition that we did on this pedal, for this version, are the carbon fiber footboards and baseboards. This is shaving a full pound of the weight of a double pedal.
They're suitcase ready.
Yeah.
I mean, they're literally just so light. And that's a pretty sexy looking pedal too. I mean, the carbon fiber on top and bottom like that, man, really cool. We didn't really change anything else for my other signature pedal. Just the carbon fiber. It has a slightly flexible feel to it for some reason. I know this stuff is like really, really, really strong, but it flexes a little bit, and I like that. It makes me feel like the pedal's working with me and not pushing against me. It's a really cool feel, and I thank you guys for doing it. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing. I was like super excited whenever we were working on it and doing the whole back and forth. The cool thing is that on paper you think that carbon fiber is a more solid, more rigid material than aluminum. But whenever you play it, it might have some kind of give to it. So it kind of adds to gives you more of a slap feeling. It doesn't affect so much the playability of the pedal as much of just making the pedal lighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I remember you telling me Gus was over and he thought your case was actually empty.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they're super light. It's amazing. We still have the 21 degree. Everything's the same there. A common thing with drummers that play AXiS is the standard A feels really, really good for playing fast tempos and sustaining fast tempos.
Yeah.
And if I was in a band like Hate Eternal again, where everything was flying, I would probably stick with the standard A. What we were hearing from other artists that wasn't doing that all the time is they didn't feel like they could get, just naturally a lot of power out of it. And that's because it's if you actually look at this thing, on the regular A, the beater is going to be coming out this way. So by the time you get to the drum head, the number one piece here, it would have been way past its anchor point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Past its power point. So it feels like you're kind of pushing through the head.
Yes.
Right? So with the angling it forward and then pulling the beater back to standard playing position, what happens is when this thing hits the head, the number one piece here is at its maximum power point, right at impact.
Okay.
So it gives, just a feeling of having a little more oomph behind the stroke itself.
So from what I hear, it's basically it's for power. So to have more power.
Yeah, it feels like it has a little more power in it. Now, like I said, if I was sustaining fast tempos for a long time and doing nothing but double bass, I would probably run the other ones, because what I like about the standard A and the 90 degree is, like I said, it feels like you're going through the head. That means that this beater, when it's here, it really springs back. You know what I mean? And that's a cool thing, because for me, I want the beater to be back in playing position, for the next stroke, right? So a lot of times with pedals that have loose spring tension, it's going to the head and then it's coming back, and you already are interrupting the motion, pushing it back,
Yes.
And the faster that thing gets back to playing position means, number one, optimal distance is beater strokes.
Yeah.
And you're not wasting the energy of interrupting the natural inertia of the thing moving back. So it just works for me. That's why I've always really used tight spring tension. And this thing is all the way down pretty much. Actually, I still to this day, I've always done this, but I take the nut that's up top off as well, so I can get a few more threads out of it to make it tighter.
Yeah, and so whenever you guys were developing the 821 back in the day, was there prototyping going on? Was it it was the first version that was made like that, or how?
I think Daryl he's very engineered incline, and I think he mathematically figured out like what would put it at the optimal like point of impact where it had the most inertia going towards the head, and he came up with 21, and I think he just did that, and that was that. I don't remember there being any other like prototypes per se. Yeah. I mean, it's not enough. Honestly, it's from the 21 to the regular, 90 degree. It's not enough to like really feel the difference until you're like playing something. You may feel it. Yeah, I did. It's very minimal.
I did like whenever I did a comparison between the 03, the A, the A21, and the 11. I honestly barely felt any difference in the 11, the A21. It was a cool pedal, but like it's no longer in the catalog now.
Right.
I wanted to talk about something else. Now, in the past, signature pedal before the carbon fiber, we used to have the pedal with the micro tuner. Now we went back actually to the standard spring assembly. And the cool thing that we have done is that now the standard spring assembly has the two positions. Derek, also another thing that's special about Derek's pedal is the deep rocker.
Right.
The deeper rocker position on the spring, as you can see here. What this changes is the closer the beater goes to the head, the more tension you are getting as you get closer to the head. I want to understand like where did we get to do that and why?
Okay, so that was another thing that just I think Daryl figured out on paper. Yeah. Okay, so it's kind of hard to see on the camera, but when this thing is mounted up here, it has a shorter distance when it starts rocking back and forth than it does when it's mounted at the end of this. So what happens is when this thing stretches out, when it's mounted here, it pulls the spring a lot further than it does when it's mounted closer up towards where the actual AXiS is at, right?
Yeah.
So you're pulling the spring further each direction, right? So it was just a way just to create a little more tension out of it. I like a pedal that's really light, but I also want it to be tight. I mean, I want the thing to like almost be even hard to get to the head. I know that sounds crazy, but for playing fast, getting that beater back, this was just another one of the things that we thought might work. And it does. It really, really does. I mean, the positioning, that's interesting too. The positioning difference from here, from this lower anchor point than the higher anchor point is a more of a difference than the angle here. I mean, that's a big variable too. Like when you look at it, how much further is that thing's being pulled being on the end of an anchor point.
Yeah, and some drummers swear by it. They would love to play. Like I know Austin. Everybody knows Austin Archie from Florida Shore. That's all he does. He goes on the deeper rocker. So I've seen him go to insane speeds for the doubles. Lots of guys love that for the doubles because it just gives you much more tension.
Right. You don't think about all of this like little things. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's so many little things that will change the way that feels. But look, don't let that get to your head. I used to joke all the time and going back years about how there was too many adjustments on all these pedals. Like people spend more time adjusting the thing and trying to play with it than they do actually playing with it and making your body adjust to the pedal. That's what it comes down to, I think, is, just putting the time in, of course. Obviously, we're going to be more comfortable on certain things than others. I've been playing this pedal so long, I don't know anything else, It's allowed me to be able to play on anything. That's another really good thing about AXiS pedals, especially set up the way that I have it set up. Like if you can play on this, you can play on anything.
Yeah, it's definitely like an iconic pedal, and it did like pave the way of like these types of pedals and definitely influence a lot of people to kind of make their own version of it. I agree with you 100% on like investing the time in actual practicing and getting your technique and kicking ass. Probably. Yeah. And then gear will just be like a tool that will help you just maybe, as you said, just gives you a little bit more of comfort. Right. But I've seen guys like do everything on pretty much anything.
Yeah. That's the one thing that I don't think any other pedal company has gotten is the light and tight thing.
Yeah.
Pedal that's like really lightweight feeling. Doesn't feel like you have to use much energy to move it, but it's tight enough to be fast, and just obviously the weight helps with that as well. But just no other pedal company has been able to nail that feel.
And it shows because of how many people try so many things, and I get so many people just come back and tell me, hey, I tried this and I tried that, and that's like I just came back and I'm playing my pedal and I'm playing my A-long board, my A21. It's legendary, and also like we all grew up like seeing this pedal and seeing you and seeing all these like legends that have like carved basically that the extreme metal, like playing these pedals,
Right.
growing up. So like it's a nostalgic thing also on top of everything else, on top of that, how good they are and how playable they are and how much of a like tool that makes everything easier.
Here's a funny story.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I ever saw these, a friend of mine, Chris McAvoy, his wife had bought them for him for Christmas or something. And he was like, hey, man, you got to come over and check out these pedals. I was like, yeah, I'm a gear nerd. So anytime, you don't have to ask me twice. So I go over there and I see these things and just automatically was just... I was playing Camcos at the time. I was like, oh, man, these things are great. I asked him, I said, if who do we get them from? I think Dave at Atlanta Discount Drums or Atlanta Drums.
So that's probably late 80s, yeah?
Well, it was 90.
90, okay.
Yeah, like going right into 91. I went down there the next day, and sure enough, he had another set there. I bought them and took them home. And I have the same story that everybody that's played AXiS, you put them on for a week or so, and they're so weird at first. Like, I mean, especially like think about me, because there was no other pedal. There was no other direct drive other than the Speed King at the time. So it was such a different feel. It was definitely not what I was used to, and it took me a while, and it just seemed like I wasn't getting used to it. I could play things that I wasn't able to play on the Camcos, but it just seemed like I wasn't adjusting. And every single person that's played these things knows what I'm talking about. So I ended up going back to the Camcos, but then I fell into the AXiS withdrawal syndrome, which is what happens to all of us.
Yeah, exactly.
You realize like, all right, well, I was playing things more efficiently on those, even though they feel weird. I just gotta push myself through it, And it seems like every single drummer I know that back then, at least especially, that started playing these went through that,
Another thing that I was talking to everybody at NAM about it. For a long time, we had our axles are made out of this hex piece, and there's a rod inside here that goes into the cam. Right. For the longest part ever during the prototyping time, we used to make these out of two pieces. This was drilled and tapped, and this rod here used to screw into this hex piece.
Yes, right.
Just because this was past the prototyping time, we just thought that it would be a good thing to just like solidify this and streamline it. So we just changed how we manufactured this part and made it out of a solid piece now. It's just routed out of one solid steel piece.
I got you. See, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Another thing also, which is an upgrade that we have done, and we had a few prototypes, and now I think that's where we are landing on, is our new heel blocks. For the longest time ever, due to patenting issues in the past, we could not have a ball bearing in our heel block. So about 6 years ago, we just introduced an actual ball bearing in the heel block. That changed a lot about the pedal. The pedal became smoother, and the longevity of the heel blocks became so much better than before.
Right. I haven't had any issues. I've been playing the set that I got last year. Absolutely no issues, and I played 4 days a week, probably 3-4 hours a day, 5 days a week sometimes, and they've gotten a lot of mileage.
Maybe you can also show the people this the pegs. So some people, although I love the Velcro.
I love the Velcro.
Velcro loves me. We love it because you just set the pedal in, and there's no way it would move. Some people say, "Oh, I can't have trouble taking it off the pedal." So, and we were trying to just kind of make it work for everybody. So for the drummers that just have an issue with the Velcro, or maybe they just want to have Velcro on the back or in the middle, we just added spikes or pegs. The spikes will go into it and will hold the pedal in place. It's a cool addition, and I think just to standardize the pedal a little bit more.
Something else that got added in the last decade that not a lot of people know about are the hoop bumpers.
Yeah.
Right? So when my original AXiS pedals came, when you put it on the hoop, it would go all the way to the spring on the toe clamp. What was happening on my drum kit, I didn't even realize that it was eating through the hoop and actually getting closer and closer and closer to the head, because it was like sawing through the hoop. And then, so now there are the hoop bumpers, which give you the same distance every single time. And that won't end up happening to your hoops.
Of course, Derek's pedals come with our legendary E-kits, or we call them the detonator triggers right now. We upgraded those triggers. As you can see, they're in red right now, and the detonator is also in red. The double pedals come with these triggers pre-installed and ready to go. These triggers have actually been like one of the most important iconic things about AXiS, and I would say like most of the legacy of our brand comes from like incorporating these triggers, because at the time nobody has seen anything like that, where like the trigger is actually incorporated into the pedal as opposed to the clip-on trigger that's installed on kick drum. So maybe Derek, I'm sure you were there during the time of like prototyping this trigger and making it. So like I would like to hear more about that, because we have never spoken about that.
The funny thing about AXiS, going back to Daryl and the design of the pedal, Daryl was more of a jazz kind of player. He came from a jazz background, and he designed this thing basically for jazz drummers to play heel down, right?
Yeah.
And the metal world just kind of took it over. I remember this goes back to the story I was telling you earlier about getting my first pair. I remember taking them home, and I felt like I kind of discovered a new band, and you didn't want like any of your friends to know about it yet. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you just wanted to check them out for a while and kind of listen to them and kind of be the cool kid. You know what I mean? And I remember thinking to myself after playing these things and getting used to them, I was like, man, I hope Pete Sandoval doesn't find out about these things. And it wasn't like 2 months later, they came through on the Covenant tour, and he's flying, and he's got AXiS stickers stuck on the front of the bass drum heads. I was like, I knew it. I knew it. But so that's what happened. Like all of the metal drummers just gravitated towards these things. And then, of course, with the stick-on triggers, working off of vibration, your snare drum set it off, or the bass player set it off. Room from room, they're different. So for a touring drummer, it was a nightmare. And I think just every single drummer that communicated with AXiS at the time was probably saying, man, yeah, we'd like to have some type of trigger. It was triggering systems were better or whatever. So initially, it came from the pad that was mountable down here.
Yeah.
And you'd put the beater the other way and strike downward. It was kind of like a simpler version of what Roland had, except it just attached right to the pedal.
Yeah.
I was thinking, well, if you got that and that's attached to the pedal, then why couldn't you have another trigger somewhere else that still allowed the bass drum head, the beater to hit the bass drum head, but you could trigger it, and Daryl came up with that. I think that was part of the prototypes that he was doing for Rick Allen from Def Leppard, because Daryl designed all of his stuff.
Yeah.
When he lost his arm and all of the electronic stuff that he plays, Daryl designed all of that.
Yeah.
So I think that's where that particular design came from.
Of course, for those who do not know, Rick Allen plays with the legendary band Def Leppard, and Rick Allen lost his arm in a car accident, and so he needed to have much more pedals so he can like make up for stuff that he would use his arm for. Right. So he would play much more with his feet than with his arms.
Yeah, and Daryl had put all of that stuff together, and it was kind of like the pre-AXiS days, like right around the same time he got the company started up. Lots of history and legacy there.
Okay, so one other thing we wanted to chat about is actually the development of and basically why did you choose the standard spring as opposed to the microtool, which I also personally like the feeling of it, but I would like to hear from you, like why wouldn't you like the feeling of the second bearing that we offer on our microtool?
I just think that the solid anchor point, I think it just creates overall stability in the stroke. The more moving parts you have, that's like another way for things just to get wiggy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And being that this thing is anchored and not on a swivel, and it provides more tension as well, because it's not moving with itself. It's moving from one particular anchor point, and it provides a little kind of a snappier kind of feel.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
That's from my experience. I feel like it's snappier.
Yeah.
It's definitely snappier.
I have pedals with the microtunes on them here and there, and I like them. It's not like it makes that big of a difference, but it's just those little things that just edge you closer and closer to your comfort zone,
Here, as you can see, This is we borrowed this part from our microtune, and it doesn't change a lot. It changes a little bit the range of tension, which is also why people go for the microtune. And lots of people like ask me like, what's so special about it? What's different? Like the main thing is being able to adjust the spring with a drum key, and the number two is he created Daryl, when he designed it, he created more range of tension. He's like 2.5 times the range of tension of this spring.
Right.
For me personally, I said it and forget it. Another thing that we introduced and we are about to like push those triggers back into production is our E3 triggers. Those triggers mount on the bottom of our footboard. Basically the same mechanism of our E-kits. The only difference is that you put the trigger on the bottom here, and you can set it up, of course, whenever the beater hits the head. That's when the detonator, the spring steel detonator, will hit the strike plate that's on the bottom. Another thing I wanted to chat about is our fastest drummer competition. We used to do those like back in the day.
Oh yeah.
The WFD, the world fastest drummers competitions, and we were thinking about like making like an event and bringing these back to NAMM probably next year.
Okay, that would be fun.
Those are always fun. Those are always bring lots of drummers and create like a buzz around the booth.
Right.
Do you remember that back in the day when that was it was Boo
McAfee?
Boo McAfee.
Yeah. Man, there was a lot of people involved with that over the years. It was really cool. I used to see drummers coming up and doing. I mean, all day long, people trying for the record. And it was a cool kind of thing to see. Very competitive for the most part. That was the big argument. Like, music's not supposed to be a competition. It's not music. It's notes. I mean, like you're just playing. Notes mean nothing without melody, so it's like, come on, it's just fun.
Yeah, it was literally just fun, but it was cool because like you get a bunch of guys that are like, how much did you get? How much? And then we put everybody's name on the board and
the scorecard.
Yeah, the scorecard. It was really fun, and then we just make an event out of it, and you can get like the first winner will get a pedal at the end of the show. I think next year we're definitely gonna make like a more structured event for that.
It was always fun seeing people attempt it. We used to stand around and just watch these guys go for it.
Let's talk a little bit about your technique
or lack thereof.
Yeah, so let's talk more about that, because I've seen many interviews for you where like the first thing you say is that like I just don't think about this kind of stuff. I just jump into it, and I like this mentality because I feel so many people just dedicate so much time into like making a choice of how to execute more than executing itself.
I think technique for the sake of technique is. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. Everything's good. You know what I mean? For me, because I grew up in a recording studio environment, everything that, and when I say I don't think about this type of stuff, that's kind of the wrong thing to say. I do think about that type of stuff, but it's not from technique. It's from sound. I don't care what technique I have to use to get the sound that I'm looking for. That's where it all started for me. I've just always kind of ran sitting down from the hip because that gave me the sound I was looking for.
Oh yeah, of course.
I sacrifice speed, but I sound good.
Yeah, of course. If you don't do full leg and you're like literally running on the pedals, and I see how like you feel that acoustic sound,
Right. Yeah.
It's such a reliable. It's a thing that you rely on. The trigger didn't work, whatever happened, even the mic didn't work. You just feel that you sit in front of the stage. Remember, you're saying like I wanna go front row, and I wanna feel the drums, and I wanna hear the amps, and I wanna feel the energy of the stage, and that's something that's becoming slowly part of the past.
Yeah. That's unfortunate. Yeah, I mean, technique is only good. It's like, what good is having like perfect technique if people in the front row can't hear you?
Yeah.
Or
because those are the biggest fans. Because those are the people.
The biggest fans are in the front row, and they're generally behind the PA line.
Yeah.
So you got all these bands playing with no amps on stage, and basically the only thing you're getting is cymbals. For me, it started from like sound. And not only like sound for me, but how do I sound to other people? What I sound like 20 feet away is very important to me.
Yeah.
Like it's something I've always thought about. I mean, sure, you can use the PA to amplify you or whatever, but if you're not in front of the PA, like if you're on side stage watching a band, or if you are in the front row and the PA's hanging up there, and you're not getting that, you're not hearing the drummer.
And you gotta always, like have the privilege of having somebody like today. We were at Tim Young, also Tim Young's house, one of our artists as well.
Right.
And Derek just sat on the kit and he was playing a little bit, and then me and Tim were like, oh, that sounds really good. And but I remember what he said like, yeah, you don't get to know how good it sounds when you're sitting there.
When you're sitting behind him, yeah.
Because you hear a cymbal, you're deaf, you're like the snare. The snare is right here next to you. So like when somebody tells you, it just kind of it helps you make a reference of like, oh yeah, that's how it should sound, and this kind of playing with conviction.
Right.
I love that word.
Yeah, because it's not about hard or tapping or any of that. It's the conviction. It's the meaning behind the notes you're playing.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's changed a lot in metal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And again, it's all good, whatever.
Yeah.
Just for me, I'm looking for something a little more substantial in my notes. What good is having a Porsche in your driveway if there's no gas in the engine? That's kind of where I make that analogy. The most asked question on the internet for drummers is, how do I get faster? Everybody will tell you the same answer. Well, you got to start slow and build up from there. Well, if that was the answer, then the number one question wouldn't be, how do I get faster? When I tell people, if you want to play fast, you have to play fast, because no amount of playing slow will ever help you play fast.
Yeah.
And then people take that. It's like, see, you can't play slow, you got to play fast. But you got to do them both. You play fast to tell your body, this is what I'm asking you to do.
Yeah.
And then you go back and you play slow to work out, the spacing between the notes and the spacing between the limbs and to tighten it all up, It's like, it's a balance of all of that.
It's definitely got to have that balance, because at the end of the day, like, it's a very passionate style of music, and there's a lot of emotions. And when you're sitting and playing, it's good to feel that you're playing from your heart and from your mind at the same time, and it's not just all calculated.
Right. Somebody asked me the other day, say, what's going through your mind when you're playing or whatever? I said, I can tell you what's not going through my mind when I'm playing.
Yeah.
Drums. Drums is the last thing I'm thinking about when I'm sitting behind the kit, like playing. It's like I'm thinking about the music. I'm thinking about what does the band sound like, but as far as like, I'm not really necessarily thinking about like, okay, what's my technique? What's the BPM? I'm not, none of that stuff like has ever gone through my mind ever. I didn't even know what some of the songs were that we were playing live until people started telling me. We never set out to be like, you were going to write a song at 250 BPM. You know what I mean? Like we just happened to have one. Right. And then everybody was coming up to me like, man, that song's like 250 and blah, blah, blah. I was like, cool. Is that any good? Do you like it? I mean, that's cool that it's a number and everything, but does it make you feel good? Or like, are you angry? Like, did it do anything for you other than like make you want to go look up like a number related to it? Like
having a gig, honestly, I think having a gig that wants you to play a certain thing beats like sitting and just trying to play faster. I felt from an experience, a gig that calls for you. There's like, oh yeah, you have a gig and the gig is 250, 260 BPM and you're not there. But just when you know that in a month I have to do that, it's like if you're running from a bear, you are gonna run faster than any other on a track.
Than any other time. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's the gig sometimes makes a difference.
Oh yeah, I mean the conditioning on the road is one thing. Like that's where all of us drummers that are doing this stuff, that's where we're playing our best, is when you're doing it night after night after night after night.
I would like to thank you for being with us today. I think we're running a little bit out of time here. Of course, everybody knows how to watch videos of Derek. Derek has his own YouTube channel. He has his socials. Of course, Derek is one of the drummers that, like, if you are 5 years old and you go on like some drumming group on Facebook and you ask a question, Derek you would find him, like, he would answer everybody. He's very resourceful. He's always there. He has a community, one of the first biggest communities of just helping the drummers teach to get is DerekRoddyLessons.com. This has been like the forum that started everything. We all like met each other there, and so like if anybody needs anything from Derek will always like answer. Will always help the drummers. He's like our godfather when it comes to this kind of stuff. Online and available.
Reach out anytime.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us today, and we're definitely gonna have more of these coming up later on. Take care.
Cheers.
Cheers.